Welcome to Raise With Us, a podcast that is for the future, where we discuss the innovative, elevate, and make sure that we lift everyone in tuned to this kind of conversation that's going to help us as we grow as people. Here at Raise With Us, we are focusing mainly on the growth. It could be in any other subjects that includes entrepreneurship, your business, your workplace, also in your faith, if you are one of the faith. Our aim is to make sure that we elevate, including also African continent. How can we have growth? We are talking about the future. I mean, there's so many people who have discussed things that have passed, but it's time now we talk about what is it the future looks like. And there's nothing more than this conversation I'm having today with my friend Tom Kegode, who's in the studio with myself. I know Tom from a previous work in our media. We run P Town Radio, one of our radio station here in Plymouth, where we are both best. So I've known him for a long time, but he has gone and do wonders. I've been following him. He doesn't know I was following him, but I was following him. I'm going to introduce to you my guest, my very first guest in this particular podcast very soon. But before I do that, let me just tell you more about who is Tom and what I understand it to be Tom. So Tom, joining with me today is a leader and a thinker in the leadership, workplace, innovation, and future of work. Very interesting. Sometimes we don't even realize how much work and what the future holds for a normal 9 to 5 or a 8 to 5, whatever it is you do. Or is it going to be a 3-day week or a 4-day week, or you're going to go full 7-day week? Only the future will tell us. Tom brings over 15 years of experience working on the intersection of people, culture, and change. He has held senior roles within major organizations, including leading future of work and culture initiatives with a strong focus on putting people, not just technology, at the center of how work involves. He also works as a speaker coach. Please don't forget to follow him. After this conversation, you're going to want to follow Tom. And a facilitator helping leaders and teams navigate uncertainty, build adaptive culture, and develop the skills needed for the future. Tom, welcome to Raise With Us podcast. You're very much welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, yes. When you put it like that, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yes.
But yeah, look, it's great to be with you, and fondly remember those P-Town days back in the day, dropping the Afro beats, and yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
Yes. I mean, before I know I've told people what I think you are. Can you just give us a brief of actually who is Tom Kegode? I know you are from Kenyan descent, and tell us more. Tom?
Yeah. So look, so ultimately, you know, what you've covered is totally accurate for where I am right now, right? Yes. So I help leaders and organisations evolve for the future of work and become future ready. But it's been a bit of a journey to get to that point. Yes. So my background, I like Kenyan descent, and my dad's Kenyan. I actually just got back from Kenya in October last year, so I was kind of going over there to explore the world of work out there right now, because the growth in Africa is phenomenal at the moment. So it was great to spend some time out there with my sister. But so I guess kind of a bit of a potted history of my journey. So been with one organisation, Lloyds Banking Group. I was with them for 16 years in total.
Yes.
I started as a cashier on the counter down in a place called Totnes in South Devon, so not too far from where we are today in Plymouth. Shout out to the Totnes Massive. I spent I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left sixth form, and then that's kind of when one of my friends was working at Lloyds, TSB it was at the time, so why don't you give this a try? And then I kind of find myself 15 years later still there, but the opportunities that I had to move around that organisation. So effectively what I did was spent 5 years in frontline customer service and leading branch teams, from starting in the southwest, moving right across the Wales and West region, so focusing on customer service and performance and coaching other bank managers right across the region to serve customers better. So that was the first 5 years. Then I kind of got curious and wanted to explore living in the capital city as well. So I moved to London. So I did a 5-year stint living in London, at which time I moved into what was the digital part of the bank at the time. Okay. So I moved into to an innovation culture and events team within Lloyds. So it was at the time that fintechs were starting to emerge. We were starting to think about how do we evolve this organisation. So that was a really fun time. It was one of those typical offices from back in the sort of like early 2010s. There's a lot of beanbags around, a lot of writing on the walls. So that was really fun doing that within Lloyds and having that opportunity. So that was 5 years in innovation, and then towards the end of my time in the innovation team, I just started to look at what were some of the emerging trends around the future of work and how do we create great places that people love to go to work. And it just so happened to be the time that I was starting to do a little project on Microsoft Teams at the back end of 2019, and everyone was kind of like, "What are you talking about, Tom? Like, no, this is never going to catch on." No. And then obviously February 2020, COVID hit, and then they were like, "Tom, you were talking about Microsoft Teams." Yeah, so let's have a look at. Can we have a look at that again, please? So, so it's a really interesting time to be looking at the evolution of work against that backdrop. So that was the moment that I moved into the HR team, people and places. So I did a lot of work around how do we come back better? How do we build a better workplace? How do we build better workforces and help our people get the most out of work based on how they needed to serve customers or the work that they needed to do. Yeah. So that was kind of the final 5 years, and the last 2 of those years I spent directly partnering the Chief People and Places Officer for Lloyds Banking Group and telling the story of our transformation, so how the organisation was changing in service of customers and how we were sort of adopting technology to do that. So and then I basically decided at the end of last year that I'd kind of been in one place for long enough, and actually I wanted to work with more teams and more leaders and organisations to help them create better work for the future. So I set up as a consultant now, so now I work with lots of different clients that are tackling the challenges that face the future of work using innovation methods, but importantly also having fun as well whilst we do it. So
I know you love your fun. Let's get into that. I mean, there's so many things that you've covered there which are very interesting, but I want to start with the leadership. Because that's what you do talk about that a lot in your videos and the things you do. Leadership is one of those most overused words today, isn't it? I'm a leader, or you're the leader. Some of us, we're from African descent. Leadership comes by age. Since I'm the old ones here, I must be the leader. Everyone claims it, but very few people kind of really put into practice. And I think we should talk about that. What do you think most people get wrong about leadership? What's your take on that?
So I think there's a few things, right? One of the things I think there's a very distinct difference between managing people and leading people. So when you think about processes are designed to be managed, right? So you will manage that through to completion. People want to be led, so that's kind of where the inspiration comes in. That kind of the ability to create an environment for people to thrive. That is fundamentally what leadership is there to do, and anyone can be a leader at any level within an organisation. You just have to have that kind of the core competencies that I like to think of around sort of how am I I guess it's kind of thinking about how you can coach people, how you can bring people along the way, how you provide clarity for people in times of change is another one that's really important. Creating an environment of care, so caring for that person that you are working with, or is also really key. So, but also there's a necessary level of challenge that's also required. So I think when I think of those 4 C's when I think of leadership, so care, clarity, coach and challenge, that combination are all critical skills when it comes to being leaders. And what is I'm definitely observing right now, which is very interesting, is the path of people that decide that they want to be a leader is going to start to become much more of an emergent career path. Whereas previously you will have seen people that get to a level of technical ability and competence and then they acquire a team, when actually they may not be interested in leading people. They might actually just be interested in their trade and in their specialism, what it is that they do. So I think we'll start to see that kind of a bit of a divergence between sort of people that are task managing and leading people and leading teams.
Yeah.
And the kind of leadership skills that are going to be really critical in the future of work are quite different from the ones that we've had in the past.
Yeah, I was about just to pick up on that to say, is leadership today more about visibility? Do you think we're getting candy floss leaders? We're getting titled leaders, the one that just says, I am in charge, but not necessarily being leaders. I mean, we're talking about the young people now. Generation have changed. The young people who are around these days, because the whole point of our podcast is trying to elevate people into such positions, into such leadership.
Yeah.
But do you feel like we are producing leaders at the moment?
So I think it's you'll always find like good leaders in society, but then everyone has also got a story of a bad leader, right, as well.
Yes.
So I think it's the significant impact that a leader has on your experience as somebody that's that's working for that leader or working with that leader. You've probably heard the expression that people leave leaders, they don't leave organisations, because they leave the experience that they have, because all of your lived experience is tied up in that relationship with that person who may be your leader.
Yes.
You also have the same scenario where, when there's a really good leader, they often have a team of people that kind of move around with them if they move around organisations as well, because actually they're a great leader, and that they build a tribe of people that want to work with them. So I think it's there's leaders everywhere. I think it's probably what's going to be happening is that we see a more distinct choice from people who are deciding whether they want to be a leader or not. There's a term that's been used quite a lot recently called conscious unbossing by the sort of millennial and Gen Z cohorts.
Gen Z.
Right? So what they're effectively saying, do you know what? I don't want to be a leader. I want to be an artisan. Like I want to be an artisan in my trade. I don't want to pursue a leadership position. So with that, there's going to be a split. So you'll have much more people that are moving into those roles that actively want to pursue becoming a leader.
Okay, and let's talk about those ones who are already the leaders. Where do you think they're falling short? Where do you think leaders fall short mostly in terms of, is it the honesty, is it the courage, is it decision making? How do one become a not so good leader? What
signs and what would I advise sort of to watch out for? So I guess kind of if you're talking more than you're listening, I would watch out for that. So you want to be as a leader, you need to be listening to your team and taking in their views, their thoughts, their opinions to then shape the decision that you make. So when we're in an environment where it's very sort of tell based, sort of, you must do this because I say, rather than actually providing clarity around the request that you're either making or bringing people along on that journey. So that's when I see that kind of go, problems in with leaders that aren't doing that, you then start to have a disengaged team, and then actually, that it's not a happy place for a happy environment. So the more that leaders can bring people with them, that's one of the most important things. So having open dialogues of conversation, but actually involving them in the decisions around the work so that they feel heard, so that people feel heard. The other one I think is very important in this day and age, where there's a significant opportunity for leaders, is to bring their authenticity. So the things that make them human and that make them them. Yeah. Because in a world where we've got such a high penetration of technology that is impacting the way that we consume content, and it's almost, it can be difficult to know what content is real now as well, when you see some of the kind of AI and the deep fake scenarios. Deep fake information is going up. It's up 245% year on year.
I'm not surprised. Yes.
So actually, leaders at this moment in time have a unique opportunity to be that human voice, the voice of trust. Because what's also really interesting, some data that I've seen, is that people want to trust their leaders. Yes. So they're kind of knocking at an open door for those that are leaders that want to stand out right now. Then there's an opportunity for them to bring their people along the way, tell stories, and be authentic.
It's very, very interesting, man. If you want to know more or follow more, please check out Tom's social medias, which we will put on this video as we completed it. Tom, let's talk about the future of work. I've heard in the past that someone was suggesting we could be working 4 days a week. It's good for mental health. It's good for mental stimulation and things like that. Where do you think we are going? It's just work.
Yeah.
What the future looks like.
So, I mean, who can tell what the future looks like,
Yes.
right? Because, just over the last 5 years, we have seen or 6 years now, we've seen significant change that we didn't see coming. So one thing that you can be sure of about the future of work is that change will remain a constant.
Yeah.
So today, if you think about it like this, right? Today is the slowest it's ever going to be in our lifetime. It's only going to get faster than it is today.
That's correct.
So when you think about it like that, there's an element of becoming very comfortable in operating in that environment. There's also multiple trends that are emerging right now. So obviously we can see the growth of tech and the impact of AI and generative AI and how that's developing almost by the day, probably by the hour, right, in terms of its ability and what it can do. And then you've got this kind of backdrop of a range of other kind of disruptive things going on. When you think about climate change, you think about geopolitics, you think about aging demographic and the mixture. And I know we'll talk a little bit about Africa, but I'm particularly interested at the moment in this concept that we've got 5 generations in the workforce now, which is not something we've had before, all with different needs and expected to live longer. We've then obviously got Africa, which is growing, and the youth of that demographic of the whole continent
is big.
It is huge. So there's all these shifts taking place at the same time. So that we can definitely be sure of change and ongoing change. When it comes to the future of work, I think there's an opportunity. We're going to have to evolve the thinking to be comfortable with that. Lots of businesses and organisations that I've worked with and I talk to are thinking about how they transform their organisation.
Yes.
Right? Transform it for technology. Digital transformation. Now, the problem with that is that it signals that at some point we will be done with that transformation. Whereas, as we all know, with the pace of change, we'll get to that point and we'll need to transform again. So that's why I've started to reframe business transformation as business evolution, so that all organisations start to be comfortable with that kind of world of constant change and sort of be ready for that. And I think that's kind of going to be the underlying one of the underlying themes of the future. The one thing we know is that we will continue to evolve and it'll be exciting, but there's an opportunity for people to shape it. When it comes to some of those days, you talk about like the 4 day week. Personally, my personal view is that anything that is providing us a fixed structure to say that this is how we work is too rigid. Yeah, so we've had a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, for the last 100 odd years, right? Yes. So what we learned during COVID, particularly when we were thinking about how do we build this flexible approach to working that means it can serve people, was that actually you cannot provide flexibility unless you have a whole range of options that you can provide. So I don't think that by saying we all go to 4 day a week, I think that becomes just another rigid box where actually we need to take a much more flexible approach to flexibility, because you've got people that are operating, cross time zones, right? You've got people that are, might want to do some work on a Sunday, but it's all about the individual. That flexibility means different things to different people. Yes. So you need to be able to have a conversation around the ways of working, and then agree that as a team and revisit it regularly rather than box yourself in.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I mean, when I read it, I'm like, I don't see how 1 day could make a difference. But anyway, it probably does on other people in terms of from making it from 4 days to from 5 days.
And I think on that, right, there's lots of people are already doing this, right? And there's lots of people across the workforce that work in shifts. There's lots of people that will have to cover they do like a 9 days on and then 10 days off. All of this is happening.
It's already happening.
Yes. So there's proof points that these things work, but the one size fits all approach is the part where I think I start to get nervous, because I'm like, hold on, if we start doing that, it just becomes another rigid. A rigid box for people to have to operate within, rather than having the flexibility that they can ask for.
let's talk about the technology itself coming into workplaces.
Yeah.
I mean, should people be worried in terms of being replaced by the robots? These days, robots don't come in a way of like it used to be.
Not yet.
It's now AIs. And I mean, listen, I really think now. I really put my brains on anymore. All I do is just type in. If I argue with my wife, I type in how do I solve this problem. I mean, where do you see this relationship between technology and work going?
So this is a really I love this topic, and I'm on quite a journey myself with artificial intelligence and general AI. And I'm just learning so much as I go. So, a couple of things that I think. One is that this is what I would describe as a general purpose change. Mm-hmm. So, in the same way that we had electricity, mm-hmm. in the same way that the internet, mm-hmm. or if you want to go further back, you can go to the wheel, right? So, a general purpose change which will impact all of us, regardless of whether we like it or not. It will impact all of us in our work and in our life. So that's one thing to think about. This is coming. It's already here. The opportunity. There's a few opportunities that I see with this. So. There's definitely, like you said, you rarely think, right? I also do think. I think you are thinking. So because I think when AI works really well is when it has got rich human insight and rich human input. So you are using it to curate and to organize your thoughts and to deepen those. So that's when it works really well. If the approach you take with where there's the term like AI slop, right, mm-hmm. which is also kind of things which is so clearly written by AI have no human input. Now that is the classic rubbish in, rubbish out principle, mm-hmm. is what I think applies when you think about that, right? Because if you're not putting anything good in, you're not going to get anything good out. No. So it's all about how you can use your human expertise to deepen and enrich what you're already thinking, already talking about.
That's correct.
The other opportunity that's there is the tools. So I don't think it's going to be, is AI going to take your job? Mm-hmm. Right now, no. Is somebody with better AI skills than you going to take your job? That's quite possible.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So it's about the choice that you make as an individual. Yeah. And all of us as individuals have that opportunity to explore with this technology as it's emerging. So I think it's a really exciting time. So actually so that opportunity to explore, and what you find when you do that is that you learn so much along the way when you're using those tools like AI, right? So you're learning along the way. It's also removed a lot of barriers to entry for some of the more technical skills that you might have needed in the past. So I've been building products recently and tools using Claude Code to build in my natural language. So I've got no technical capability in terms of engineering coding, but I can build a piece of software now. So
yes.
So it's there's an amazing opportunity that's lowered that barrier to entry. The choice is basically between, are you a skeptic or are you going to surf this wave? Like me, I'm surfing, because I'm like, it will come. So it's the opportunity to do that. So it's how you choose to lean in. I think one of my favorite use cases for AI, right, which is what I discovered in my personal life, and then that made me think, hold on a minute, I wonder what else I can apply this to. Yeah, I take a picture of the food that I've got, like in the fridge, or I get a vegetable box delivered, right? So I put it all out at the beginning of the week, lay it out on the table, take a picture, and I'm like, I want to do a weekly run sheet of a dinner plan for this week. I can go to the shop and get a few things. I'd like meat on a couple of days, and then I take the picture and I send that through, and it comes through with a whole list of recipes for the week. And then I'm like, can I have an individual run sheet for that one? I'm going to cook it tonight along with timings. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I know. So you're good from nowhere. You're not Gordon Ramsay now. Yeah. But I mean, that's it. So once you find that use case in your life, you can play around with. That's correct. Then you might be able to think what's more. So I would just encourage people to play now. This is the time to play and learn.
So basically, we are concluding that this technology is not coming to take over our jobs. It's literally we're going to have to work with it. We'll have to embrace it and introduce it into our workplaces and businesses. If we are listen, our podcast aims to go as far as rural areas in Africa, where probably some of this technology are still not really fully functioning. But we hope that from Tom's conversation, technology is only going to elevate our minds, not replace our minds.
Yeah, and I think, when we think about Africa as well, like a unique opportunity for the continent. Like I've spent quite a bit of time in Kenya. I'm planning to go back over the next year as well. I need to just go and see more countries in Africa. I'm particularly interested in going to Nigeria. Rwanda. I'm also quite interested in going and South Africa. What's really Yeah, I mean, Zimbabwe. Just left Zimbabwe. You have to take me. I'm only going if I'm going with you, right? Okay. So, I think there's, when you look at the continent, actually quite a highly mobile enabled continent. I mean, when I'm thinking about Kenya, when M-Pesa is like mobile money has been there before. We were paying on phones it started in 2007, I think it was. M-Pesa over there, where you can pay using your phone.
Yeah, your phone. Yes.
So highly mobile enabled already. I think there's a big tech scene out there growing as well. Lots of space, lots in the education ed tech space, as well as sort of agri-tech. But there's a lot of opportunity.
Yes. This might not be talked as much with people. It's very interesting. Education. Is it the only way to success these days, or you gotta have also life experience and I mean, in some people, how it is, school used to be very rigid, where they failed to put money in the curriculum. Now people are understanding money more because of the social media, which we just talked about. So my question is, do you think just education is enough for a young person now, or they gotta try and embrace this sort of technology, AI things, whilst they're still at school, and also, like you just mentioned, talking about coding, etc. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think education is critical. When you think about curriculum, it needs to evolve with the times as well, right? So when you're thinking about the kind of way that education would prepare people for life in the past, that will need to evolve because when we think about some of the skills, when I think about future skills and what the kind of skills that will be required in the future will be, the last time I checked, when we're looking at skills, the shelf life of a skill, so how long a particular skill is going to be, remain an important skill, is 5 years. A tech skill, 2.5 years, right? So that's kind of how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
So what that means is that you to go to somewhere obviously when you've got certain career paths that actually it's critical for you to go, like a doctor, for example, right? It's critical to go through a defined path over a number of years, but then there's a number of others where actually going and studying something for 5 years for a job that has not necessarily been created yet is not necessarily the most effective way to prepare for the future. So I'm really interested in this and how this evolves. I'm actually in the process of becoming a school governor in the local area, because I want to play more of a role in understanding how schools are preparing young people for the future world of work. So I think it's a combination of both of those things. So I think it's a combination of that life experience and what you can do, that kind of the mindset and the entrepreneurship, as well as the education. But the other thing that I think is really important is how we learn from other generations.
Yes.
Right?
You just fall into my lap there. I mean, my trips are very good. Young people and work.
Yeah.
I mean, this young generation these days, young people are often described as entitled and motivated, but that feels like an oversimplification. What do old generations misunderstood about young people today? There's a massive gap between old generation, that doesn't include me, I'm not that old, and the young people. I feel like there's a massive gap of understanding, because now we are now just saying, but I've heard this a lot now. we're not like them anymore. And then they're not built like us anymore. There's massive gap there. So what do you think the older people can really focus on to elevate the young people in today's workplaces?
So I think it's really interesting because when we think about generations, it is the one area that we feel as a society that it's okay to stereotype and put people into boxes still. So like, when I think about people that are saying, young people are entitled or lazy, like I know a lot of older people that are entitled and also lazy, right? So what that shows is that this is not something that is specific to a particular demographic. This is something that is everybody has the potential to display positive traits and traits that are seen as not so positive. So I think it's that kind of sweeping generalisation is not helpful. I think in when that's going on in society and people make those generalisations. But there's a huge opportunity for people in sort of an older generation. So there's, like I say, 5 generations in the workforce now, which has never been before. Is to switch that topic from generational divide to a generational exchange, because the more opportunities there are for those people to talk to each other, then they can learn from each other as well. So it's that opportunity to create that exchange of ideas, learn from each other, for mutual benefit. So what I would say, I think, older generations and not to be, from an older generation perspective, you've got a load of experience, so actually don't write off another generation. Think about how you can share that experience, but also learn from them as well, because they'll have a different perspective. So it's that kind of opportunity for sharing, for mutual benefit, which I think is the key opportunity. So rather than just sort of further subscribing to certain ideas around how particular generations are, and young people do it the same about boomers. Like, it's this whole, we need to stop all of that across all generations and just be people and learn from each other, because the reality is that there's different sort of personas within all of those different generations as well. So
very interesting. I mean, these days as well, man, the benchmark is being set very high with social media. How damaging do you think social media is when it comes to expectation of success? I'm talking about young people here. We want to make sure that as part of this podcast, we also elevate young people in work and encourage them to take positions in work, encourage them to actually take employment. I was only listening to the radio the other day that this is not subjective to young or old. In every 5 adults, there's only one who's at work, and there's a number of I was actually laughing that they were saying the employment rate has gone very high in UK, and I'm thinking, Africa's got a chance if its unemployment is very high in Europe or in places like UK. So we're trying to encourage young people to go to work, and we can only do so through these kind of conversations. And I'm also kind of questioning social media when it comes to that aspect of success, because people are now quickly, I remember when crypto came in place, we created so many millionaires within so many millionaires in that time apparently, and also there's the likes of iShowSpeed, young, walking around Africa right now, showcasing Africa, but making a lot of money in the process. So already the success is now there. So I'm sure by the time you finish that sort of journey, someone is going to be, I want to be like iShowSpeed, but then they forget the education, they forget the hierarchy of success, which is start from a reception desk, and then you go upwards. So do you think social media plays a massive role in there, or it can be used positive?
So I think there's both, right? It's like there's positives and there's negatives. I do think it's really interesting how the conversation is now being sort of approached around removing access to social media for under 16s, which the UK government is having that conversation at the moment, which I think is quite interesting. It's taken this long for that to happen.
Yes.
I think when it comes to what social media can provide is that kind of aspiration. So actually bringing that aspiration, I don't think is too bad. Like I think that's quite healthy. You know, when you think about the world, there is an abundance in the world. So I think there's, for people to have and aspire to those goals and to have a place to see that, then I think that's a positive.
Yeah.
It's about thinking about how you can combine what you're seeing with your lived reality. I think is also something that is important for people to realise. So, you know, if I'm thinking about this aspirational, I want to be like this person, you think about, well, what's the gap between where I am now and what that looks like? Because it's going to be quite hard to make that jump from where you are now to being there. So there's a whole load of things that need to happen in between. So and part of that is education. Like a big part of that is your education and going through that. But also sort of meeting and connecting with people, learning some of those kind of human people skills. You know, doing things like, you know, I've always used, when I've moved around my career, the fact that I started as a cashier on the counter, that has always been a key part of how I learned, because I learned difficult conversations with customers, learned how to deal with complaints and to resolve things, deliver great service. So it's finding opportunities for that. And that's where you know, when, as you're sort of growing up, there's a real space for sort of getting out and doing some work that puts you in those situations. I always think like hospitality is a great place to start, but also retail. I was speaking to one of the directors for apprenticeships and skills for JD Sports the other day. An amazing organisation that does so much in their local communities, but also is providing such a rich set of life skills in the environments that they're working with the public and serving customers. So I think it's having that balance and thinking about how are you, in that space that you're in now, that aspirational space, what are all of the small things that you want to add? What are all the tools that you want to have in your toolkit to help you make that step into that journey? And it's going to be kind of more of a staircase than a straight journey, right? And each little stair with your experience will get you to that point eventually, if you keep that kind of view and that goal. And but it's a combination of all of those things: life skills, people skills, and education.
Yes. Tom, let's just give us a scenario here a bit. I am a young guy, or young, old, doesn't really matter. I run my company of 25 people, and I called your office, or I called your number and said, Tom, I need some help in my organization. Talk me through what sort of things people expect, and how you could help a small business. I mean, as you can now tell, many people are now turning into entrepreneurship as part of living. We're having more companies opening than before, and mainly, of course, myself being from the BME, I'm always want to promote my people. So let's say someone is listening, he's heard the podcast, and how could you one, get a hold of you, and two, what is the sort of things would you go and encourage people to do in their workplace? Yeah,
so look, the best place to find me is always on LinkedIn. So I post on LinkedIn every weekday. The working week, the Monday to
4
Friday.
days, no.
But I'm also very active on Instagram and TikTok. I post on there every day around some of the kind of emerging themes and ideas around the future of work. Primarily, you know, when I speak to people, I'm always looking to how I can help them solve challenges, puzzles, tricky, like wicked problems that's getting in the way of them being successful. So, and that kind of always tends to be around the kind of those themes around the future of work, but it might be around building a business strategy, like how can we kind of bring people together on that journey. So I've got a particular method that I use, which is all around bringing leaders with their teams together and facilitating them to go on a journey together, to identify what the challenge is, co-create a solution, and then set them on a path to activation. So it's fused in kind of innovation methods and thinking to help people to solve the puzzles and challenges that are getting in the way. I also kind of host and facilitate sort of off-sites and away days and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the core thing that I kind of I'll be sort of there to help with. And I'm also an executive coach, so I coach senior leaders at times of transition too. So that's kind of the mix. And then I also run like a series of I run mastermind sessions as well. So this is generally for people that are like, I've got my leadership team and we need to upskill around storytelling or multi-generation workforces or ways of working. So I've got those kind of sessions that I run as well. So usually it's for individuals that are at points of change and transition and that are looking to work to kind of navigate that. And then teams that are kind of looking to upskill, take themselves up and get themselves future ready with the future of work skills, or business leaders that have got a particular puzzle that they're looking to solve at pace within sort of 30, 60, 90 days, and want to sort of build a big program of work around that.
Yeah. Very interesting. You know, I cannot make you leave this desk without discussing a bit of, you know, 5 or so minutes about Africa. You say you've been to Kenya, which is a very interesting part. Recently, I've been engaging myself into farming back in Zimbabwe. Where do you see the future of young people? I mean, you did mention that the demography of people in Africa right now as a continent is very high. We have more young people in the world than in Africa. Where do you think their future lies? Where do you see Africa in 10, 15 years in terms of work? Because clearly there is a misbalance, if you like, if you want to compare it with the West, what we call work. There's so many people who are busy doing stuff, but we need to, I'm talking about creating work opportunities, systems around it. What's your take on your last trip?
So I think so what's really interesting when we look at the different continents and the growth and the youth of those demographics. So looking at where we are now, Africa makes up about, the continent of Africa makes up about 18% of the global population, right? By the time we get to 2050, it will be 25%. So that's quite a significant point jump, because that will be in the working age. That will be the so what that means is the opportunity, the investment over, like at the moment, organizations will need to be thinking, what's your Africa strategy? Because when you're thinking about where you're going to get the skills of tomorrow, is going to be there. You know, in the same way that we've seen significant skills growth in India. That will now start to, I think, will become somewhere else that becomes a real skills hub. So, you know, that I've already mentioned the fact that it's highly mobile enabled. So actually, that is there's an infrastructure there and a desire to work in a digital way. And also then from the perspective, I think another interesting, there's obviously the concept right now. So you think about organizations investing in skills, I think that will happen. The tech scene is growing significantly. You know, in Kenya they're calling it the Silicon Savannah, right? So Silicon Valley, you got the Silicon Savannah. So these are the places where there's significant tech growth. What I think will also happen because of the development, like I saw the development in Nairobi since I went back in 2018. This building up. Right? So, you know, you've got these skyscrapers, these amazing skyscrapers out there. So that's all great. The growth is there. The infrastructure's there. The roads are getting better. I think what you'll also see is a shift in this kind of concept of digital nomadism, where people like to go to places like Bali and Thailand. I'm actually going to Thailand on Monday next week. So there'll be a bit of a digital nomad over there for a little bit. But I think we'll start to see that happen in parts of Africa now as well, because there'll be, you know, opportunities for people to work, and you know, you got multinational companies start to have more of a presence over there. Then actually people think, well, do you know what? Maybe I'll go and work from Nairobi for, you know, a couple of months, and actually I can work out of my office in, you know, a big corporate who've got their office set up there. I can go and spend some time in that office and work from there. So I think that kind of concept of working will then open up more opportunities for the continent from a tourism perspective as well. So I think there's going to be a real sort of boom moment that's coming, which I think is really exciting. I'm looking forward to see how technology is going to be implemented in Africa, and I feel like that sort of motherland thing, you know, we're very resourceful as Africans, because technology has not reached us over time, but we've always managed to manage. For example, we can talk about knowing what that trees does for your stomach, or for your, you know, for things like that. So merging those two things together, I'm looking forward to that. What would you say now to a young African man who is
really looking up, is probably finishes O levels, A levels. In your mindset, in terms of his path, you should probably be taking and thinking, because so many people are now using visas as a way out, leaving the continent to so-called greener pastures. But at the same context, we are saying the future is now in Africa. You see where I'm going? Where I'm going with it? I mean, as a thinker you are, what would you advise a young man who just finishes A levels or university at that point?
So I would be thinking, I would be playing an active role in the tech communities in wherever you're based. So start to understand that kind of landscape, what's going on, go to meetups, go to events that are there, go and just see what, they have quite a lot of sort of social activities and stuff like that, where you can go and meet lots of people that are working in different sectors already there. So I would almost say explore home, explore the motherland before you start to look outwards. Because what you have then, and then you can look outwards as well, the role that then you can play is the opportunity to be the bridge between places. So if you're thinking, actually, I'm really interested in going spending some time over in this place, that's great, but make sure you have deep connections and keep that connection and be the bridge.
That's correct.
Because at some point, organisations are going to be thinking, how do I go and get set up in Nairobi? Or how do I go and get set up in Harare? Right? And actually, the opportunity for you as somebody that is in that space right now is the on-the-ground knowledge, the awareness of how the city operates and the cultures of that and the connections there. So, if someone's like, that's like looking to go and set themselves up in Nairobi, actually by knowing all of the people that do all the real estate there, you can be like, do you know what, let me go and find you some buildings if that's what you're looking for. I can connect you with somebody that can help us with that if you're looking to get yourself an office set up out there. So playing that bridge back to the continent and keeping that channel open, I think is a great opportunity right now.
Tom, you have been fantastic. Man, before I let you go, I gotta ask you, is there anything that you thought, when I get to sit down with Tendai, certain things, a message I want to pass on to the people? Clearly, we are also locally in Plymouth, so we can start by elevating locally.
Yeah, of course.
Before we reach out to the magnitude of the world. Is there anything that you felt like I could share on this particular podcast that people can carry on and also affirm your contact details?
So I think when we look at when we're thinking about, so I now like to think about this kind of this sort of a global but also local approach. So there, being down in Plymouth, and I spent 5 years living in London, moved back down to Plymouth because I wanted to be back down here. But at the same time, during the sort of tail end of my time at Lloyd's, I was in London most weeks. So, the connection that we've got back to the capital city isn't as far as people think. Even when people that are in London think, oh, wait, you're in Plymouth, that's so far away. I'm like, nah, it's not really. No. Not really. So I think there's the opportunity that it's kind of this flexibility that this new way of working has means that there's so much more opportunity, which has opened up to so many more people in this city, and in the southwest as a whole. So don't be restricted by that. It might be that you might get a job and you have to go to Bristol one day a week. Actually, that's quite nice. You have to go and be in a different city. One day a week may be fine. Or some of them are completely remote. So the opportunities have now been unlocked for so many. So almost don't restrict yourself to your location. Have that global mindset. So I think there's definitely that I would say, be curious right now. So like we talked about, so much change that's going on, the opportunity for you to sort of step in and lean into that and sort of surf the wave rather than be skeptical about it and have to play catch up at a later date. There's the opportunity and you'll learn so much along that way if you adapt that curious mindset. And that goes for everyone. And I think it's kind of, think about the role that you play in your communities. And I say communities very specifically. What's the role you want to play in your digital communities, your social media network, your social media communities? What's the person you want to be and how do you want to show up there? What's the role you also play in your physical local communities, your family networks? And how all of those things make you, right? All of those build that authenticity that we talked about being so important for leaders of the future. But also it means that you've got you start to live and develop a really whole life, which you can draw on lots of different experiences at different times. And And it's, you know, part of the reason that when I left, I wanted to spend more time doing things locally. So I've joined, like I said, I'm sort of looking to become a school governor. I'm doing some work with a couple of the colleges, and also some of the big organisations in the southwest. So play a role in your local community, but also be present and take interest and play a role in that global community as well.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tom. This was just not a conversation, really. It was more than a conversation. This is about the future. This wasn't just, a mere conversation about work. It was a conversation about responsibility, courage, and direction, where things are going. No one is a fortune teller. We cannot tell the future, but we can certainly prepare for the future. If it's not something you cannot prepare, it's something you actually prepare or you pay for. Basically, you pay for with your time when the future comes. It's been a pleasure. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe to our channel, Rise With Us. Tom, thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you very much. It's been great to have a conversation.
Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.